Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I wish to thank the chairman of the session, Mr. Garg, for allowing me to extend my presentation for a little bit. I was struggling to fit in everything, so he's been most kind to allow me to bore you a little bit more. Also, there's a disadvantage of being the last speaker of the day, because everything that had to be said has already been said. So I'm wondering, how am I going to make this presentation, because I'm going to repeat a lot of things that have been said. But also here's an opportunity of tying in everything together and presenting it in a manner that probably you can find it easier to carry with you. Now I have a good news and a bad news. So I'll give you the good news first. For all those who are interested, but first let me also mention that, like everybody else, I'm going to use these terms of character education, value education, moral education, and all interchangeably. Now all of these mean different things, but we don't want to get into that. We know what we're talking about. So for all those who are interested in the topic of character education and value education, which essentially is this group, there's good news. The good news is this, that people have found out that by using certain substances you can alter behavior. They actually noticed this with a horrible thing called alcohol. But it all came to light when they started experimenting with antidepressant drugs. And they saw that people who consume these medicines, antidepressants and so on, they actually become more helpful, they become more kind, they become more patient, which otherwise they were not. So there are a whole lot of people who are experimenting with the physiological aspect of behavioral change. And they are coming up with something called the morality pill. And this is the good news. That's how you want people to become more truthful, pop in a pill. You want people to become honest, take another pill. You want to become more patient, take another pill. So here's the good news. It makes things much easier for us, educationists. Don't worry about that. Continue doing the other thing. Medicine will take care of morality. So that's the good news. But the bad news is that it's not going to happen. It never worked. The reason is that human endeavor is conditional upon something much greater than a pill. And it's volition, it's will. If we have to act in a manner, we need to know what we have to do. We need to know the consequences of doing or not doing that thing, and then mustering the will and volition of doing it and getting up, going ahead and doing that. So the question is, do we want to be good because we have to, which is the case with the moral pill. You pop in a pill, you'll give up your volition, and you have to act in a manner. Or do we want to? So as educationists, I'm afraid there's no easy way out. We will have to go the long way, the hard way, and we have to kind of influence human volition, that people will want to adopt a certain kind of character, upright character that is meet and seemly. So a little bit of good news and bad news for us. So there is no shortcut here. A few guiding principles. These have been mentioned again and again, so we'll breeze through it. Human nobility. Friends, all of us dealing with schools are dealing with human beings. Little children, teachers, parents. The question is, who are they? When you look at a classroom full of children, 20, 30, 40, 50 and more, what do you see in these children? Are they just bodies sitting on these chairs, benches? Or are they bodies with hearts, minds and souls? Because the nature of our work with these children is going to change depending on how we see them. So this question of human nobility and whatever has been said about human nature is very pertinent. Once and for all, we have to be clear. Who are we as human beings? Nobility, by the way, is something that religion tells us. God says that I've created you in my own image. Now God will not create something horrible. God will create noble beings. That's a different matter that this nobility does not always come out. So we have a problem there which we have to figure out, but we are noble creatures. So that's one guiding principle, and these are very general guiding principles. They have nothing to do with character education, they have nothing to do with education, they're just there. The second principle to realize is that human being is much more than just his body. We have a material part, an intellectual part, a social part, and more importantly, a moral and spiritual part. So all of this needs to be stimulated. All of this needs to be developed. But is that happening? Sadly, no. Today, education, for example, is merely a tool for our material progress. Good job, more money, more wealth, more progress, and so on. A little bit of social progress is happening, a whole lot of intellectual progress is happening because schools are mostly only about academics. What about moral? What about spiritual? We had a press conference earlier. Friends, if it's not going to happen in schools, where else is it going to happen? Schools are the places where we have formalized education. We have put in systems for formal education. Now we have figured out everything else except values and morals and everything else. So what we are doing is faulty, is incomplete, and it's just as well that we are sitting together and discussing these things. The third, of course, is what Sunidhi mentioned, and we have been hearing this this morning. It is not enough for me to become a good person, to be transformed and good. What are we going to do with all these wonderful people if we are not going to build wonderful society? I'll give you an example. Many people struggle to understand this concept, the interrelationship between transformed individual as against a transformed society. Friends, a drop of water, a humble drop of water, H2O, has no capacity, nothing. But a whole lot of these drops of water, when they gather together, the dynamics created are nigh uncontrollable. They move boulders, they generate electricity. Look at water, and they irrigate vast areas of land. Look at what a river can do. Now, the day we realize that collectively new dynamics come about when people get together, then we begin to see the reality of life and education and the world in a different light. And that's something we need to do. So these are some of the general guiding principles that we need to be aware of. More focused on value education. There are also a few guiding principles. In fact, 3 of them. The first is, of course, value education has to have this affective part, the part that touches the heart. And it's a concept that's easy to understand. You know, we give inspiring stories to children and we touch their tender hearts and we motivate them and all of that, emotions, attitudes, and so on. What is generally missing is the second part, which is the cognitive part. Friends, thinking. Our children, sadly, in India, in Indian schools, even among the best schools, are not being trained to become thinkers. Why? We have academics, we have study, we have social studies, a lesson is taught. At the end of the lesson are questions. The answers to these questions are in the lesson. You just pick them up and write them down. Where is the thinking happening? So we are not developing groups and groups of thinkers. And when you bring this in the context of values, we realize that we are not fulfilling the potential that is possible. Let me give you an example. Empathy. What is the meaning of empathy? Empathy means putting yourself in the shoes of the other person. This takes imagination. This takes higher order thinking. I need to imagine myself in the person. If my cognitive skills are not so developed, how am I going to ever know what empathy means? So we need to understand that values and character education cannot happen unless we create bands of thinkers. How is that going to happen? We need to figure it out. The third, of course, is the conative part, which is action, service. And the best example is Neora High School. They gave us a wonderful examples of how we actually can act upon it. Value education requires these 3 things. The affective, where it touches the heart, the cognitive, where it stimulates the mind, and of course action. So a little bit background. Moving on. What do we mean by whole school? Whole school approach to value education is nothing but reinforcement. Do something again and again and again and again and again till it has the desired effect. That's whole school. Now, this is what I have found in my experience, that this approach works very well. The first is, of course, a direct approach, where you actually have a set of materials, a teacher, dedicated periods, and we are doing that. But it doesn't end there. There is something called the integrated and the whole school, and I'll take you through them summarily. The first is, of course, the direct approach. When you assign a set of material to a designated teacher and fixed periods in the class, it allows you focus and flexibility, which otherwise you will not have. So there is merit in having this. Now suddenly you don't get excited and throw away all these things. You say, all right, whole school means we do everything else but this. So this is also whole school. It's one small part of what should be happening in the school. A lot of focus, a lot of flexibility, and it works very, very well. This is what a direct approach should have. These are some of the things. It should not be didactic. This is Gita mentioned in the morning, that this element of didactic. What does it mean? Didactic means that at the end of the lesson you are giving a moral of the story. Therefore we learn, moral of the story is that we should be kind to animals. You allow the children to discover for themselves. Remember cognition? So our material should be non-didactic, it should be inspiring, to touch the heart. The methodology is very important. Many times we are not very careful about the methodology that we employ, in not only values, but everywhere. So, and I'll be talking a little bit more about the methodology that we should be using. Teachers. The teachers need to be oriented, they need to be, this is one of the most important things that we can do in schools. Therefore, it requires that investment of time and effort. Frequency of sessions. Sometimes we just have one session a week. Not enough. We need more sessions. You want to have better results, better outcomes, you need to have more frequency of sessions. How you work out your timetable, I don't know, but that's the principle. And of course, joyful learning. You need to have appropriate classroom environment. Friends, we cannot have a lot of competition happening in schools and then expect children to become more cooperative. We cannot have physical punishment and fear and anger in the classroom and expect that children by some miracle will develop values. So the classroom environment is also important. So we go now to another domain of classroom management, of discipline management and all of that. There is no dichotomy, it's all one. It's just that we are not talking about teaching maths, we are talking about teaching values. So it's the same process. And finally, joyful learning. Children have to enjoy it. I have found out value education classes which should have been the most inspiring and liked or the least liked because of the manner in which they are done. Children should enjoy what they learn, and they learn it better. Two things that are missing today, and I strongly recommend that it should happen. By the way, if you look at the documents of NCERT, there are two documents, the National Curriculum Framework of 2005 and the Framework of Value Education 2012, I believe. They say that NCERT, Agency of the Indian government, Human Resource Development Ministry, is saying please teach religion in schools. I think we have taken this notion of secularism too far, that religion is only for the home and we don't talk about religion. Yes, we will talk about religion and we will talk about all religion. Let our children know about religion, but that's where values are coming from. Values are coming from religion. So we talk about religion. Value education, content and programs need to include education on religion, and I did mention about cognition. There is something called moral dilemmas. You know, a dilemma is a situation where there are two possible outcomes, and both are equally valid. Now you present this before the children and let them think, what to do in this situation, what would you do? And they discuss and then they think and then they come at a conclusion. Since it's not non-didactic, fine, we take your conclusion and move on to another round of discussion. And this is something that works very well. I wish to introduce to you at this point a program of value education that I have found to be the most effective so far in India, which combines all the things that I mentioned to you, and it's called the Foundation of Peace. It's a program of peace education, and it runs from lower KG to grade 5. What it includes is all the values are centered around peace. So nothing is left out. But the central theme of this program is peace, but then it arranges a whole lot of things. There are teacher's guide, lesson plans made out for the teacher. There are activity books that are carried out. The central purpose of this program is to help make children peacemakers, which means two things. One, children should be trained to be able to prevent conflict. So if they see there is something going to go wrong, they intervene, they resolve the situation, matter resolved, no conflict happen. Or then they should have the capability of being able to resolve conflicts as and when they happen. So they are trained in certain skills, in attitudes, in some values, and the knowledge in order to be able to do that. And it's very powerful the way it happened. And finally, of course, delivery of this program, and that's the USP. That's where this really scores above all the other programs that I've seen, is that the mode of delivery is cooperative learning. The structural approach to cooperative learning, what is that? We'll talk about that in a while. So I invite you to find out a little bit more about the peace education, because this has been also structured and made for Indian schools, and it's very powerful. A survey was done, a study was done for NCRT in a number of schools, including the Neora Foundation. And the results have been very encouraging, that when you run this program for a while, the transformation that's seen in the children is really very, very amazing. There are a few challenges in the direct approach. First is priority. Many schools don't take value education as any priority. If you take all the schools, government schools, Zilla Parishad schools and everything, you'll find that only a small percentage of schools have value education of one form or the other. A vast majority of them don't have any value education program, in spite of all that has been said about the need for it. So this is a challenge that we have. The second is, what approach do we have? Schools that have value education mostly have a content-based approach to value education. So out of all these other books that exist, we take out a book on value education, give it to a teacher, now the teacher goes and teaches it like any other text. It doesn't work. And on top of it, they conduct exams and tests and grade the children and give them marks and pass and fail them. Obviously, it's not going to work. So this is it. The selection content, I can tell you, is really bad. That sometimes a school selects a book based on the amount of commission that the publisher is willing to give, without bothering to see what's inside the book. It's a book of value. But no, okay, this publisher will give me more, so let's order those books so the school, it's that kind. And that's a challenge. Teachers, I have found out, librarian, okay, we don't have anybody, I can't spare my math teacher or anyone. A librarian, you go and teach value education. Or somebody who is the most dispensable is assigned this so important activity. Methodology, chalk and talk and question answers and all of that. What about a very stimulating methodology for teaching value? Frequency of sessions I did mention. And friends, learning. Are we analyzing what is happening in our school? Okay, I have a program of value education. Now I need to find out every once in a while whether it's working or not. What are my expectations from this program? Are those outcomes being achieved? Is it working? What course correction? Hamid mentioned about study, action, reflection. It's actually consultation, action, reflection. So I want value education in my school. Now this is my plan, and once in a while we analyze. I don't think enough learning is happening. We just have a program and we allow it to go on. But we need to learn a little bit more in order for it to improve with time. That's a little bit about the direct approach. Part one, a very good, inspiring, stimulating material assigned to a trained and competent and energetic teacher with optimum number of sessions, and this is the direct approach. Then we come to the integrated approach, where we try to bring out values from the course content, from whatever the children are studying in class. Every teacher here becomes a value education teacher, without exception. I'm a maths teacher, I try to bring out values while teaching math. I'm a history teacher, I bring out values from history. Obviously, teachers need to be training. This is not easy. This is very difficult. We need to orient teachers, we need to help them to understand. Lesson plans are the best tool for this. In my school, and I found out a few other schools where they have lesson plans, they have modified, and I sincerely hope teachers have lesson plans. Every great thing has to be done in a planned way, but I wonder how can we teach children without a plan? So a lesson plan helps me to know what am I going to do tomorrow when I go to the classroom. Now the lesson plans are modified in a manner where the values that I'm going to bring out is also borne out there. So what are the values that I'm going to address? How am I going to teach them? What questions am I going to ask? What kind of activities am I going to carry out? And give them importance. And that's the only way this will happen. The lesson plan, the all-important lesson plan. Methodology. Anything you do other than rote learning is good. Rote learning is mugging up things and writing answers. Stop that. Whatever else you do will work. So that's the thumb rule for classroom teaching. A little bit more. Here are some examples. History. History, geography, language. Language is the richest source of value. Poems, stories, all that. Science. You know, I love this example that somebody gave me. In one of the lesson plans, my teacher, while teaching refraction, you know what is refraction? When light passes from a rarer medium to a denser, it bends. So there is this illusion that light bends. It's an illusion. And this teacher related this to examples of superstition and prejudice and all of that. You know, in reality, we have many illusions in life. Brilliant. And all it takes is 1 minute or so. And we bring out values from history. There's so much that can be taught about geography, unity, interdependence, and all of that. So suddenly reinforcement increases. Apart from that direct approach, now every teacher goes and brings out one value or the other, year-round, day after day, week after week, and period after period. We can expect better results. I wish to talk about cooperative learning here. Mr. Garg asked about competition. How are we going to do away with competition? Friends, if we have a problem, we cannot find separate solutions to those problems. We have to go normally to fix the problem. Otherwise, we are creating dichotomies. If we have too much of competition in our schools, then we have to change everything to address that, not to do something extra in addition to fix it. It'll never happen. What I suggest is please investigate. I'm not saying adopt it. It's very difficult to adopt. Cooperative learning is very difficult. Please investigate about cooperative learning. Structural approach to cooperative learning. If this is used more and more in classrooms, you will find children become more and more cooperative, because that's the whole purpose of it. That's why it was created. So this is one way of doing it. So if you want to teach maths, if you're going to teach any of the subject, use cooperative learning. First of all, what cooperative learning is not should be clarified. Many times when I talk about cooperative learning, the first thing teachers say, yes sir, we know, we do it, we have it in our school. Friends, cooperative learning is not just getting a group of children to work on a project together. Most of the time you'll find these children start fighting with each other because they don't know the rules of the game. Or you'll find that dominant children are dominating the others and not allowing everyone to participate. But that's against the principles of cooperative learning. It's universal participation. Everybody has to participate. So cooperative learning is not just about getting people to work together. There are certain rules, there are some laws are followed, it has to be structured. Children work in heterogeneous groups. They are mixed up based on gender, background, religion, social status and all of that. And that's where cooperation actually comes alive. It has to be learned, it has to be practiced, it has to be mastered, it has to be structured, it cannot be loosely coordinated, and we have cooperative learning, it doesn't happen. And as I said earlier, now you have to also redo the entire classroom environment. The classroom management tools, the classroom discipline and class rules, and all of that have to be rewritten for cooperative learning to work. Now if you do all of this, there's a little bit also about cooperative game. You know, in the morning we play the game, Follow the Leader. That's a cooperative game. In cooperative learning we call it All of Us All at One. And there are hundreds of such games. These games are non-competitive. There is no competition. No one loses. No one is ever out. It's suitable for all age groups. It can be used for learning content. There are cooperative games for maths. You want to teach maths, mathematical concept, there are cooperative games for that. Intensity level, there are some that will make you sweat like you run a 100-meter sprint. And there are some that you can carry out sitting and leisurely. Cooperative games. And they're fun. There are studies done by the University of Ottawa that have said that if you want to improve the moral education environment of your institution, your school, if you don't do anything else and introduce and structure cooperative games, you will get those results. Just by playing cooperative games. And you will find that children actually become more moral. I ask you, if children learn to collaborate with each other, what are the values required for being able to cooperate together? Children begin to develop those qualities and more. What are the benefits of cooperative learning? Here, team building and cooperation. Think about it. What are the values? What are the attitudes required? It begins to happen. And there are thousands of reports. Please do a Google search. Please do, and don't take my word for it. Do a Google search on cooperative learning. Structural approach to cooperative learning and find out for yourself. And these are the benefits of it. They break down differences. Social skills are enhanced. Thinking skills. Children are discussing things all the time in groups. Therefore, they are bound to think. They have to think. Communication skills develop. Children actually begin to do better in their studies. Their language skills become better. Their English improves because everything is happening in English. So these are the byproducts of it. And better comprehension, and they remember things longer. And of course they enjoy. You're giving more power to the children. They enjoy what they are doing. So please explore the possibilities of adopting cooperative learning in your schools. It not only will help your academic environment and achievement, but also will directly affect the value environment of the school. These are some of the challenges for the integrated approach. Everybody has to participate in this. You cannot have some teachers doing it and some don't. So there is some work to be done there. Time factor here means that many times I have found out teachers will come and say, sir, this is all very good, talking about values and using cooperative learning. But you know what, sir, it takes a lot of time. I have to finish the portion, I have to complete the portion, there are exams coming up, how can I do it? This is an illusion. All of this takes very little time. And in fact, many times when we don't teach well, we have to repeat things with children. We have to revise with them again. I promise you, you're saving time. With cooperative learning, if you teach them once well, you don't have to go back and teach it again. You're saving time. So, where was I? So, as much as we can talk about cooperative learning is less. There's much more to it than all of this. I have to wait for this to come back on. Anybody has any questions so far? Maybe we can. Okay, here. Back on. Right. Participative interaction, classroom management has to change, classroom discipline has to change, teacher-student relationship is something that has to change if cooperative learning is to work. And these are the challenges. Coming now to the whole school. Now reinforcement level goes higher. Now we come out of the classroom. Till now we were in the classroom. Now everything else. Friends, values are everywhere. In the whole school, everywhere we have opportunities for reinforcing values in our children. First of all, we begin with the leadership, with me, right up there. What are my values? Am I careful? Am I, we question our own self and all of that. Then we look at the school policies, the norms, the regulations, the vision of the school. Is there anything at all that is not aligned with the values that we wish to promote among our children? That has to change. That realignment will have to happen. So this, by the way, is an ongoing thing. This is something important. Then we look at our discipline management. We cannot go and bring about a lot of fear and anger and frustration and hope that children will improve their morals. So that has to be redefined. And then finally, every single thing that happens in the school, look at what I've written over there, transport. Forget about the classroom, forget about the moral education teacher. Do you know who is the first moral education teacher of the school? It's the bus driver. This child at 5, I don't know how early they leave, 6, 7 in the morning, gets into the bus. The bus driver is in a foul mood, bad mood, and is using bad language in front of the children. It's done. Now forget about value education for the rest of the day because the wrong values have been taught to the child. Somebody will have to get all these people, the gardener, the watchman, the conductor, everybody, and talk to them regularly. Orient them about values. So you are a value. As long as children are in touch with people, they are value education teachers. That's the whole school. How do we conduct the morning assembly? What goes on in the library? What is happening during breaks and recess? What is happening during games time? Cultural activities and all of that. We need to carefully look at all of that. And then we can hope that things will become better and they will reinforce the kind of values that we really want. And again, we cannot emphasize enough staff modeling. Staff modeling meaning the example that we set for the children to follow. Everything said and done, if we are saying something and doing something, it'll never work. Let me give you an example. This is something that I've actually seen. There's a 35-minute value education class where children are learning about kindness to animals. Yeah? Bell rings, children pour out of the class, they come in the playground, and what do they see? They see the gardener with a stick running after a dog and hitting it. Why? Because this dog messed up his flower bed. Now I ask you, which of this will have a more profound effect on the young mind? That 35-minute theoretical lesson on kindness to animals, or what they're actually seeing out there? Staff modeling is something that is the final frontier, and we cannot ignore that. A last word of advice. This is something we keep doing in our school, and there are a few other schools that I'm aware of that they are doing. Friends, once in a while, please get everybody together in your school and clarify some of the concepts that are related to a school's functioning. For example, who are we as human beings? We have been talking about this since morning. What is human reality? Is it just this body, or is it more than that? What is the purpose of our life? How many of us have actually asked this question in our lifetime? How many parents do that with their children? So once in a while, what is our interrelationship with each other? What are the aims and objectives of education? Friends, how many of us have done B.Ed? Many of us have done B.Ed and these specialized courses, but we still struggle today to understand what is the purpose of education. What are the characteristics of an ideal school? What are the characteristics of an ideal teacher? How do students learn? How do we motivate somebody to do something great? I mean, if our children are motivated, then we have achieved a lot. Friends, if we identify and we redefine periodically these ideas for ourselves, you will yourself discover inconsistencies. Okay, wait a minute. I know that human beings have been created noble. But then we have a whole lot of students who are acting in a manner that is not noble. Why? So we try to find out. And then we find that there is something wrong. If a noble person is acting in a manner that is not noble, it is because of the environment of that person. It's because of the training that that person is receiving. It's because of the education that that person is receiving. A little course correction is done over there. Wait a minute. The purpose of education is this. But here something else is happening. So then we have a problem. So everybody, come on, let's fix this. Then we have to align. Education is supposed to bring everybody together and carry forward an ever-advancing civilization. But here they are in cutthroat competition with each other. Something wrong. Let's fix it. Please carry out periodically this exercise of redefining and questioning your own understanding of these basic concepts once in a while. It's very revealing, very educating. Some challenges again for the whole school approach. The first is, of course, many times we don't do anything because we can't agree on one common set of values. You know, NCRT, Mrs. Wahidi would know, the NCRT was struggling to get its act together with value education for nearly 10 years because they could not agree on which set of values to promote. Traditional values, cultural values, Vedic values, universal values, which values? It doesn't matter. Go ahead, take any value and it'll take you somewhere. So don't waste so much time with that. Please invest the time and effort that it requires. And I promise you it takes a lot of effort. But it's worth it because it's a priority. Everybody in the school has to get involved in value education. Everybody without exception, right from the bus driver to the principal. And be at it. We need to be at it all the time. We need to be consistent. One teacher comes and does something, another one comes and does something, will not work. There has to be consistency in doing that. Please address the issue of too much competition. And I have only one solution for too much competition. Friends, if you cannot reduce the instances of competition, please increase the instances of cooperation. That's the only way it can work. You cannot change the manner in which examinations are conducted. You cannot change the manner in which sports and games are conducted. So you have one option, have more cooperation, which is why cooperative learning, which is why other things that we can, cooperative games and a lot of other things. But please address that. That's a big challenge. And of course, innovation and creativity. I think somebody did mention it in the morning about innovation and creativity. All of this requires us to do something different. Therefore, a culture of creativity and innovation needs to abound in our schools. This itself is a big subject that requires a lot of thought. We need to learn, we need to understand how things happen, and friends, let's be patient with each other over the mistakes that we commit. We are very, very impatient with mistakes. All of this is new for many of us, and we need to be patient with all of that. Next step, please document. If you get started with something, please write them down. There'll be a repository of knowledge for you. Next step, reach out to the parents. Mrs. Boyd again asked this question. Reach out to the parents. There's a lot of work that needs to be done there. We fix things in the school. If the home environment is also aligned to the school, light upon light. Children learn better. So there is a lot of work to be done there as well. And of course, service activities is what we heard about from Neura School, is where it comes later, where this cognitive part of everything comes together. So friends, thank you so much for your patience. If you have any questions that you would like, not here, but if you need any help, my email ID is there. If you need any help, you would like to know a little bit more about the things that can be done, I'll be happy to assist in that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Payam Shoghi, for your very comprehensive presentation on cooperative learning and an integrated approach. We still have about 5 minutes. I request the audience to have, if they have any questions, please come out. Mr. Shoghi will be very happy to. Yes, please.
Are you familiar with the 11 principles of effective character education? Because you just outlined them, not in the exact order, but you just gave everyone here the prescription for what it looks like. And so the 11 Principles booklet actually has the success criteria and rubrics, which would be a nice complement to the excellent information that you just shared with everybody. So thank you.
Any other question, please? Yeah, please.
Yes, thank you very much for this, Payam. There was something that afternoon you and I were discussing and talking together, and there was a very good comment that you mentioned. And I want you to a little bit elaborate on that. Who are the people who actually introduce the competitive spirit in children?
Well, I did mention that at some point we need to include parents. One of the examples is this. You know, we talk about competition. Have you ever thought, where does this spirit of competition get instilled in the individual, in the little children? Well, the children are noble. They're not supposed to be competitive, but they have become. Why? The starting point of competition in children is when we begin to compare them. And parents do that most of the time. Why can't you be like your sister? Why can't you be like your brother? Why can't you be like the neighbor's son? And we are instilling the sense of and unreasonable expectations, and horrible things are happening with these children. These children can't. At some point they just give up. It's not just competition, but a lot of other horrible things happening. Imagine these young children and all of that. So yes, it happens. We do it. Nobody does this knowingly. They do it inadvertently. But we need to draw attention to everybody, including parents, that please let these children be. And that's and not only competition, but a lot of other things are happening in the home. So at some point, we'll need to engage with them.
Thank you. Yes, please. Mike, please.
It was very delighting to hear many speakers right from the morning. All sessions were insightful and there was a lot of learning. But I feel if we remove the word competition, don't we think that the atmosphere of academics will become monotonous? A sort of a monotony will appear because that urge to grow may stop, or that pace of moving forward may restrict if we remove that competition part. I would like to share an anecdote. I had a problem. I was dealing with a bunch of 400 students with a very poor infrastructure. In fact, I have absolutely no infrastructure. Mine was with the government. Putting proposals and all this was a time-consuming process. So I thought how I can contribute within a given situation where we have a lack of infrastructure. It was a co-educational institution. Dealing with the co-education is a very sensitive issue. At certain places, where we feel the moral education is indoctrination, where for moral education they in a way indoctrinate students, giving more emphasis to the particular religion, interpreting in a way that they lose that human element. And that's why we see the violence, we see everyday problem in the schools, even among the smaller kids. I devised a mechanism of what you said, cooperative learning. I told my teachers to just give me, out of 50 students, do you see all our dull duffers? There is none student who is good in, and I'm forced to compete with it. In a classroom full of 40 children, how am I expected to compete with them? Suniti mentioned the only way that we can compete is with ourselves. That's question number, the first thing to remember. More importantly, in competition, we are only looking at end results. This fancy looking report card, oh very good, 90%, 80%, you've done well, 50%, 60%, horrible. But how much effort has gone into getting those 50 and 60% is not being recognized here in competition. Why have we adopted this system of competition is because it's convenient for us. Okay, pit everybody against each other, see who comes first in the race and give them a medal. And it's done, finished. I have recognized excellence. But is this the best way? Have we ever tried other ways to see that there can be better ways and we swear by competition each time? Research tells us that there are many other ways to recognize excellence, to find out who are the ones who are doing well, who are the ones who can do better, and help them along the way. There are ways that can be done. But since we are kind of into a system that we have and we don't like to change, we are going away with it. So competition is something that we really need to think about.
Thank you. Last question. Yes, please. This is the last question because we have already completed our time. Last question followed by response.
This is not only a question, this is something to what the gentleman right now was explaining, an experiment we did 3 years ago with the students ourselves. We had a conversation in class, it was a class.
These are examples of cooperative learning actually working, although they are not structured. You thought that this is a good idea, you went ahead and did it. But there are things that need to be done. The whole classroom environment will have to be realigned. There are so many classroom management tools. You know, Quiet Signal. I'm sure you're familiar with Quiet Signal. I ask you, what do you do to quieten down a classroom, a noisy classroom? After recess, you come in, children are all excited and they are making a lot of noise. How do we quieten a class? Many times we yell over the noise of the class to quieten them down, or we take a duster and bang it, quiet everybody, and we do that. But then if we expect children to become quiet, how can I make so much noise? So there's something wrong there. So Quiet Signal, I raise my hand, you raise your hand, and we signal each other, everybody quiets down. There are structures that need to be introduced. Also for discipline, also for classroom management. That's where then cooperative learning begins to work much better. So it cannot become a sporadic thing that we decide to do something. Actually, let me also caution you that this can go horribly wrong. If we don't do it well, it can actually go horribly wrong. So please be convinced that this is what you want to do. Understand it, get trained, get mastery over it, and gradually, organically introduce it. This is what I would suggest.
Thank you. That's a very good response, and in fact, I'm sure all of you must have liked it.